Welcome to another episode of Cooking for Wellness at NYU Langone Health. It's November, the weather is getting colder, and so it's the perfect time to make a simple and delicious farro risotto, or farrotto. Today we are joined by a very special guest, Dr. Mary Pat Gallagher, the director of the Pediatric Diabetes Center and Endocrinologist. Welcome, Dr. Gallagher.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little bit of olive oil to the pot.
Okay.
We're gonna begin by sweating some shallots.
Okay.
So that means medium to low heat. We're not sauteing. We're not putting color to the shallots. We're just doing it nice and simple. We want them to wilt and soften.
Okay.
Let's just give it a little bit more.
Okay.
It's okay. Perfect.
The diabetologist in me trying to cut back on the oil.
Okay, it's okay. We're gonna go ahead and add our butternut squash. In this recipe, the butternut squash is not gonna remain intact.
Okay.
We're using it as to give body and flavor and sweetness. So we don't need it. We're gonna it's gonna turn into almost puree.
Right.
So I keep all the research I did on diabetes. I kept reading about what to eat, lean protein, vegetables, beans, nuts. Like, what are the foods that we want to avoid primarily?
Sure. So for sure, you want to try to avoid things that are high in sugar or high in saturated fats, like butter, cheese, red meats.
Yeah, this recipe is actually 100% plant-based. We're not using, I mean, as hard as that is to imagine we're cooking a risotto, we're not adding cheese.
I know. We're looking for foods that are nutrient dense, so that they have vitamins and minerals, proteins, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates. Things that are more processed will have less of those things.
You can see how the squash is starting to lose its edges and it's starting to soften. So right about then is we're going to add some garlic. We have some crushed cloves of garlic. Go ahead and add that, keeping that heat low to medium. The next step is we're gonna add our farro. So one of the biggest takeaways from today is we switched the rice to farro, but in order to make the creamy, like wonderful body, like a risotto, the farro, we actually put it in the blender dry, and we crack open the holes of the farro, about half, like by pulsing it in the blender. So it allows the gluten to release. And by stirring it, just like we do in a typical risotto, we're gonna get this really wonderful body. So that, essentially you can't not do that part. We're gonna go ahead and add a cup of white wine. Yeah, so we're gonna let that wine reduce to almost dry. Perfect. And we're gonna start adding our stock. So when we're making farrotto, just like risotto, we add our stock in stages. So usually you add it in thirds. So you add about a third of what you're gonna add first, and you keep continuing to stir. And as it cooks down, then you add a little bit more, So yeah, that's perfect. So Dr. Gallagher, if you had one piece of advice to tell, an average healthy adult how to avoid diabetes, what would you tell them?
If we were trying to prevent or reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes in someone who is at risk, I think meal planning is the most helpful, because it helps you to change your behavior, which is what we have to do. So we're talking about adding all these delicious new foods into our diet, but we have to have all of the ingredients, and we have to have planned to do it. Because I'm sure everyone has the experience, you come home, you're exhausted, and you want to eat something, and you haven't planned, you'll make a choice that maybe isn't the healthiest. So that's what I think. If I had one thing, that would be it.
That's great advice.
I think plant-based eating follows the general principles that we've talked about, of being low in saturated fats, very high in nutrients, and low in simple sugars. So that's a great choice.
So we also prepared a sage and sunflower seed pesto. We just basically, we took fresh sage leaves, parsley leaves, sunflower seeds, olive oil, and a little bit of lemon zest. Buzz that in the blender, just to add a little bit of brightness and herbs to the end. We're gonna drizzle that right on top at the end. We're doing all this substitution, we're not using cheese in the risotto. We're not using animal products. We have no dairy, not even like chicken stock. So it's like, I look for ways to enhance intensity of flavors, and you get that through fresh herbs, definitely.
Right.
You get that through like a toasted sunflower seed. It brings a lot of depth and body and just like savory flavors that you know, not having Parmesan, it's like
Sure.
there's a void that you
Yes.
just kind of be creative ways to make up for that. Let's add a little fresh cracked black pepper.
Oh,
So last thing, we are ready to go. The farro is nice and tender, still a little bit of bite to it. We have some green peas. You want to go ahead and add that. So we're ready to go. We're ready to plate. And you know what? I'm going to put you on the spot. We loved having you. Give us 3 takeaways. What are the 3 things we should change about our diet right now to it?
so I think 3 things if I had to choose. 1 would be do not drink your calories. No liquid carbs, no soda, no juice.
Yep.
Right. 2 would be try to follow the healthy plate model, which you can find online, which is
I've heard of that. Yep.
Yeah, half of your plate should be vegetables, 1/4 should be protein, and 1/4 can be your carbs, which is typically not how we eat in the United States. And then the last one would be try to eat things that have a shelf life. If it's going to last for 6 years,
Yeah, that's probably better off.
good for the emergency
I like
pack,
it.
but
I like
not
this
good
one.
for you.
Yes.
Right?
Thank you so much. That's
My
amazing.
pleasure.